Thanks for watching Afternoon Live. If your child has been begging you to let them use social media, but you're not quite comfortable with the idea yet, you are not alone. Here with advice, we welcome back social media expert Natalie Zfat. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me back.
This is a tough one for a lot of parents with tweens and teens, and there's some new research suggesting that kids are actually literally losing sleep over social media.
That's exactly right. And so odds are your child at some point is going to be asking you, if they haven't already, to use social media. And so our jobs as parents is really to make sure that they are as safe as possible when they are using it.
Are there certain ages that you think are appropriate? Obviously, every family and kid is different, but some guidelines we could maybe start with?
Absolutely. Well, most social media networks actually have a minimum age of 13 for their kids to be able to use the platforms. That's true for TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. As you mentioned, and you're totally right, every parent will decide what is appropriate for their child. Those are sort of the baselines before you would even consider letting your child on.
Are there certain rules that you should implement even before signing up for an account in the first place?
Absolutely. I think the first thing you want to do if you have a kid who's considering getting on social media is you want to talk to them about the dangers of the internet. And that's true for everything from cyberbullying to catfishing. I mean, you and I know that there are people on the internet who are not exactly who they say they are, but kids may not realize that. And there might be someone online who says that they're a classmate at school who really isn't. So you want to warn them about that before they get online. You also want to talk to them a little bit about what's appropriate to post, what's not appropriate to post. Something that might feel good today in 10 years may not feel the same way for them.
The digital footprint is going to be really interesting for these younger generations to navigate. Okay, so here's another tough question. Should parents have the passwords to their kids' accounts?
This is a really, really important question, and my answer is unequivocally yes. If you have a child under the age of 18 on social media, you need all of the login information and passwords to all of those accounts, and you need to make sure that some of those settings are tweaked. For example, you want to make sure their profiles are private. You want to make sure they're not accepting follows from anyone they don't know. You want to check those geolocation settings as well and make sure they are off, so that if your kid is posting from a certain location, even to people who they know, they cannot see the location that they are posting from. And so this isn't a sort of broach or breach on privacy, rather just a exercise to make sure that the safety standards are in place for all of your kids' social channels.
And is that maybe the kind of lens to breach it from when you're talking with maybe a 17-year-old who does not want their guardian to have access to their account, that it's really a safety issue?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the way in. Again, this doesn't mean that the parent needs to log on or read the messages necessarily of their 17-year-old especially, but being able to access the account and make sure that those settings are set up in a way that doesn't create any safety issues is paramount. You can't have your kid online, of course, unless they're safe.
Okay, and are there certain platforms or channels that kids should just be avoiding altogether?
You know, I try to avoid saying, this channel or that channel is off limits completely. But what I will say is every parent needs to be aware of how a specific channel might trigger something within their specific child. So there are certain channels, for example, where a child might feel a little bit more of a need to compare. Or there's another channel where there's maybe a higher risk of cyberbullying. And so as parents, it's our job to look out for those signs. Cyberbullying is a pandemic of its own. 21% of kids aged 10 to 18 say they've been cyberbullied, but only 11% of those kids have actually told their parents about it. And so you got to look out for signs, and they're really similar to the signs of regular bullying. It's isolation, a drop in grades, not wanting to go to school, or a change in friends groups. So you can put all of these safety measures in place, but unless you are looking out for your particular child and any changes in their behavior, that's not going to be enough to stop someone from cyberbullying your kid when they are on social media.
And as much as we want to protect our kids from being the victim of that behavior, we also have to teach them not to engage in those bullying tactics online themselves either. Sometimes kids just, their brains aren't quite there yet.
You put it really well. It's not just what they might receive, but what they would put out in the world. And so, absolutely, educating your children that just because you are behind a computer doesn't mean the person on the receiving end doesn't have any less of feelings that they would if you said that comment in person. I have a 2-year-old, so I haven't reached that level yet of parenting. But for those of you watching who have older kids, I'm sure that kind of educating them about the importance of being kind on the internet and being kind in general is paramount.
Yes, on and offline, kindness is key. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
We'll have more information about Natalie on our website at katu.com. And we'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this. First, here's the latest must-have gadget from Julie Moran.